Hello, my name is Paul Arnold and I'm a qualified psychotherapist and I'm a trained coach. And today I'm going to talk to you about rediscovering yourself. Very often in the therapy room I get people who come in and say, I just don't know who I am. Or they feel somehow lost to themselves. Very often in the therapy we talk about doing one of three things. We're either doing a mastery, helping someone master something. We talk about mystery, which is a lot of what this is about, this trying to discover something about them. Or there's something about digging into someone's history, master mystery and history. You know, this is fascinating work because, you know, to really help someone discover who they are, or in many ways to discover who they have become or will become, you've got to look at it through multiple perspectives. I want to share some of those with you now, appreciating this is but a small fragment of what we can really do in the therapy room. The first thing is really looking at the narrative, and I often get them to sort of do a timeline to say what were the peaks and the troughs of who they are. And very often the troughs, the bad things, can also be as informative about what made them who they are. We often say in therapy, it's about not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. And then we can have some big new life crises that really change the trajectory of our life and who we become. Be it, a divorce, a big health thing, losing your job, retirement, whatever. So therefore we do have these critical points in our life which we get a redefinition of who we are. I'll often look at the values. Bear in mind our values can change over time, and we try to discover what are the values they have right now, what's important for them. And I'll often get them to do what I call the epitaph, which is this idea like writing how do they want to be remembered, because this gives them their future purpose, their future direction of what is yet to be accomplished for them, and therefore helps to define who they want to be. And because we're all so lousy at really understanding who we are, I'll often do an 8 adjectives test, which I'll invite them to go to, say, 8 friends, members of family, whatever, work colleagues, and say, give me 8 words that you think describe me, positive and negative, and we can then examine those. But then we've got to look at some of the big stuff, because sometimes shame is there. And we have lost track and we've lost rapport with who we really are, because we can no longer feel at peace with the person who did that act. And we've got to learn to come to terms with that and see we are still the person we are, and it was a behaviour. And likewise, got to look at trauma, because very often trauma can make us become dissociated from ourselves. But then outside of all that stuff, what I'll be doing is I'll also be looking at the making up of who we are. So who are we in this environment versus who we are in that environment? We'll be looking at the capabilities. We'll be looking at our behaviours. And like I said, we'll be looking at our values and beliefs, and also who we see ourselves to be. What's our identity? And then through that, I'll be using lots of projective techniques, lots of fun exercises, just to try to explore different perspectives. So I'll be looking at old photographs. I'll probably be getting them to draw a picture. I'll probably be getting them to think of a proverb that somehow is meaningful to them, or some phrase that maybe someone used with them. I may get them to describe a character from a film, a book, a play, whatever, that somehow most talks to them, who they most identify with. And then we'll maybe look at songs which are very meaningful to them. And so from all these multiple perspectives, I start to help them become clearer about who they are. And we've got to remember that we will start to pivot throughout life. So maybe the person we once were is no longer the person we are right now and will not be our person in the future. Anyway, I hope this helps.